Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you another guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to tell their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled this week to have my friend and former co-worker, Lauren Neutzler, on. Lauren, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
All right. As he said, my name is Lauren. I have been a teacher for 6 years now. This is my sixth year. I teach second grade in Navasota, Texas, and I love second grade.
There we go. And I got to work with Lauren as her principal for 4 years, so that's how I know Lauren. But Lauren, tell me a little bit about you becoming a teacher. When you were growing up, did you always know that was going to be your path?
Yes, I did. My mom taught kindergarten for 35 years. I was a teacher's kid. I would help her after school. She put me to work in the summertime. So I knew that's the path that I wanted to take. And she would ask me, "Are you sure it's not for the faint of heart?" And I was like, "Yep, this is what I want to do." So yes, I always knew that I was gonna go this route, definitely.
Did you always knew that it would be elementary as well, or did you ever have any interest in being a secondary teacher?
I always knew it was going to be elementary. One of my best friends, she's a high school teacher, and we always go back and forth about, I just don't know how you do high school. I don't know how you do elementary. So yeah, for me, it was always elementary. No doubt in my mind.
So, you've been a teacher now for 7 years. You said seven, right?
Well, technically, yes. This is my sixth real year, but I did so many long-term subs my
Mhm.
first year that counts. So yeah, technically seven.
So, what do you feel like you've really learned about yourself as an educator through those 6 or 7 years?
I would say one of the biggest things I've learned is to not compare myself to others,
Mhm.
because I know that I'm doing the best that I can for my kids. So that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is don't compare yourself to others. Just you do you, and your kids are going to love you for it no matter what. And then something else too that I've learned is, I mean, you have to stand up for yourself.
Mhm.
So I kind of had to grow a backbone. And that's something else that I've learned through my 7 years. Those are the two main things. Yeah.
And I find it so interesting that you say that because I think that so many educators learn that lesson, but we don't always talk about it because, we are great at championing for our kids and really going to bat to get them what they need, but we're not always as good at going to bat for what we need. And so what do you think was kind of that changing point for you where you're like, okay, I feel secure enough in my voice now that I'm going to speak up for me and not just my students?
I think it was probably my third year of teaching, where I really found my voice and just decided that I'm a person too, and I deserve to be treated the same as everybody, and I'm doing great things in my classroom too. So it was probably my third year, and I don't know exactly what the turning point was, but there was. I mean, sadly, there's always going to be people out there that talk down to you, or treat you differently for whatever reason. But there was a couple of people that I worked with that talked down to me and that didn't really respect my ideas, and I just had to stand up for myself because I knew that what I was saying was what was best for my students and for me. And so I just had to learn. You have to grow a backbone and stand
Mhm.
up for yourself, because if not, you're going to get run over.
Yeah. Well, and you're big about relationships, not only with your students, but with your coworkers and connecting with them. When did you realize that was such an important that was going to be such an important factor for you because you do really well at connecting with your kids?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a people person, and I've always been pretty outgoing, and I can usually get along with anybody. But I guess it was, let's see, I think I was my second year of teaching. I got pregnant, and actually, let's see, Christmas Eve that year, I had a miscarriage. And then 3 months later, over spring break, I had another miscarriage, and that that was such a time in my life that I'd never really experienced anything that difficult.
Mhm.
And my coworkers, who have become some of my best friends, I mean, they did everything for me. They made sure I was okay. And even, you guys as an admin staff, I had to lean on them so much. And I just realized how close I was with them, that I could confide in them, and that, they were there for me, whatever I needed, and then whenever my both of my grandmothers passed away during this time of me teaching, and same thing, my coworkers turned great friends were always there for me. They were like, you know what, when my grandma got really sick, they were like, you know what, you go home, you visit with her, we will take care of your
Right.
plans, we will take care of everything that you need. And so just leaning on my school family was, something that you don't really think they will become such a huge part of your life, but man, they really are. And I'm very grateful for those relationships that I've built. And I know that no matter where we go in the future, I'll always have those relationships.
Well, and you brought up a couple things that I think are really important to not only discuss, but are also important to your story. And the first one is, just suffering not only one miscarriage, but two, and also in a short amount of time, and it being your first time having kids and anything like that. Walk me back a little bit about, you there, because what I think people forget about is, a lot of us have dealt with loss or heartache or things like that. But when you lose someone that you feel like but you've never really met and things like that, and someone you're so excited about, walk me through of what that was like and how you were able to pick up the pieces and still show up and be there.
Yeah, let's see, my husband and I have been married for going on 10 years now. And, we knew we were going to wait a little bit to have kids, but once we're like, okay, it's time to start a family. Um, I mean, it happened real fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, such an exciting time. The hardest part, or one of the hardest parts, was that since my first miscarriage happened on Christmas Eve, we had Christmas with my dad's side of the family 2 days prior. And I mean, if you know my parents at all, you know that they are the most wonderful people, and they've always wanted to be grandparents. And so I was so excited to tell them. I wrote a poem to tell them. We told them with my entire family 2 days prior to my miscarriage. So not only were Brent and I going through that,
Right.
my family was, heartbroken as well. So, I mean, I guess, silver lining, both times that it happened, it was over a break. So I was
Mhm.
able to process it. But it was much harder than I would have ever imagined, because you always see people talk about infertility and miscarriages on social media. But until you go through it yourself, you just have no idea how heartbreaking it is. And my faith is a big, factor in my life.
Right.
I'm a strong Christian, so I firmly believe that, God had a reason for that. But it still was very hard to definitely pick up the pieces and go back to work and be there for my students whenever, I was going through that internally. And I didn't tell anybody about it
Mhm.
at first. It took me a while to tell people, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was embarrassed. It was just that, I mean, it was obviously really hard to talk about, but I didn't know how people were going to react to it. Sometimes in those situations, people don't know what to say.
Right.
And I finally told my school family, and like I said, I mean, they were there for me, but it was hard for a while to come to work. But my family helped me pick up those pieces. My school family helped me, and I mean, there were days where it was tough to get through the day for sure. And
Now,
even my
I
students.
want to I want to kind of talk about something that you mentioned there, though, that I think is important too. You talk about how important your faith is and how much of a role that played. And I think, and you can look back on it now and have that perspective. In the moment, how do you not get so angry that this thing you'd been looking so forward to just didn't happen right then?
Yeah, I mean, I was, as much as I love Jesus, I was mad.
Yeah.
I was mad. I didn't understand. And even though I knew, okay, he's in control,
Right.
he is doing this for a reason, but it's still, that didn't resonate with me in that moment. I was very mad. I cried a lot because, in my family, I mean, they were just so excited. So then to have
Mhm.
to go and tell them that, this had happened, um, I mean, that was very difficult. So for a long time, I was very angry with God, and it took me a while to come back to a place where, I mean, I could even talk to Him again or pray.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it definitely took a while.
Well, you suffer that first heartbreaking loss Christmas Eve after telling your family, and then you get pregnant again. And did you tell your family before the second one as well?
I told my parents, and then we told Brent's mom, but we
Mhm.
didn't tell all of our family yet.
Right.
We were waiting, and then unfortunately, it happened again over spring break, and so and
So
then I
how do
mean,
you I mean, at that point, how do you decide that, I'm sure the fear must consume you of, we really want a kid, we believe this is our path, but I don't know if I can take the heartache a third time. How did you not allow that to just take root?
oh man, it was hard for a while. I mean, I kind of pumped the brakes. And almost lived in fear for the longest
Mhm,
time that, like, I don't want to go through that again. But the more I prayed about it, I really felt like this is still where God was leading me. So when I got pregnant for the third time, I mean, let me tell you, every single day I
mhm,
was on edge, I was anxious, I was
mhm,
stressed. I just knew at any moment, it was going to happen again. And I didn't really share that with a lot of people, but
mhm.
every single day was just almost kind of like a nightmare, just
I'm sure.
so
I'm sure you're
worried.
always
So
thinking like, Is what's that feeling? Was that a kick? Was that this? Was that that?" And I think the positive to come out of this is, your third pregnancy did lead to you having a beautiful little boy. And
yes,
so
it did.
what has motherhood been like for you now?
Oh my gosh. I know everybody says, oh, it's the best thing ever, but it really is the best thing ever. Yeah, when you get past that point of kind of, where they tell you, I think it's 16 weeks or something. And really my doctor told me 20 weeks. When you get past that mark, it's like, okay, this is happening, and you don't have to be so anxious anymore. And yeah, it's indescribable. It has been so neat watching him grow and learn new things. And it's funny because I've said I have to transition from my second graders to my 18-month-old or 20-month-old now. But it's just been the most amazing thing. And it's even when he's screaming no at me, it's still a joy. I love it.
And I get so happy for you because I know it's such a joy to know that all the heartache led to something where you can look at it and go, okay, I was meant to be here right now. And with the two little ones that you lost before, were you one of those parents where y'all had gotten to a point where you had named your child, or are you looking at a point at some point where you are going to tell your son, or any of that? Like, how as a parent have you reconciled those pieces?
Yeah, so we had talked about names forever and ever. So we had names for both of our
Mhm.
other ones, and yeah, we're definitely going to tell Heath about his two siblings in heaven, because that's where they are, and one day he'll get to meet them. But going back to, I know that God has a plan. I mean, honestly, I don't know that if we had, the other pregnancies had gone full term, I don't know that I would have Heath. So,
Mhm.
um, as much as my heart breaks, and I can't wait to meet those other two babies one day, I'm so blessed and thankful that I have Heath. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. God has a plan, and we may not have him if he hadn't followed through with his plan. So,
And you've lost people in your life that are close to you that you've known for many years. How would you compare losing someone you've never met to losing someone you knew really closely? Is the pain the same regardless?
I wouldn't say it's the same. It's definitely a different kind of pain because when I lost both of my grandmothers much earlier than I ever thought I would, um, it was everybody was saying, "Well, they lived a long life. They
Mhm.
lived a great life," and I'm like, "Yes, they did," but I'm selfishly
Yeah,
wanting more time with them,
of course.
and so and just to know that they will never know, Heath, that is heartbreaking. But yeah, to lose someone that you've never met, but that you just felt like was such a part of you, um, that is a totally different kind of heartbreak and loss. And I feel like I grieved those two babies differently
Mhm.
because knowing that I wasn't going to get to hold them
Right.
in my arms until one day I get to heaven. That was different because it was all the what if or not what ifs, but I'll never get to do this
Yeah.
with them. I'll never get to do that with them. Whereas losing both of my grandmothers, I still had all of that time with them. I did, and I got to do so many things with them. Whereas losing somebody you've never met, I'll never get to do these things
Right.
with them.
Have you been able to connect with anybody else who's suffered any miscarriages or provide any insight or support for someone else, or you get some support from someone?
Yes, definitely. When I first went through both of them so close together, I reached out to several friends that I knew either had miscarriages or
Mhm.
struggled with infertility, and I mean, we spent hours on the phone, or at a coffee shop, sitting in Starbucks, crying, and sometimes it wasn't even let me offer you advice. Sometimes it was just let me sit here and cry with you
Mhm.
because we know the same pain. And so now I have several friends who are struggling with infertility. And while that's a different kind of hurt,
Mhm.
we can still talk about, how hard it is to lose someone you've never met or to want something
Mhm.
so bad that it's just not happening for you. So, yeah, I was provided support, and then I've been able to give that support to several friends that have reached out. So it's been healing for sure.
Well, and I think that's what is important people to hear is that yes, these things are so personal and you feel so alone while you go through them, but it's in those moments that you do reach out and either sit with someone and cry or talk or get advice that you realize you don't have to walk the path alone. You can walk with others next to you, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. And like I said, I mean, everybody's pain is different, everybody's struggle
Mhm.
is different. But it's close enough to where you can just sit with somebody and talk with them about their struggles, and you just get each other. It's like, I get it. And like I said, most of the time, it's not even let me offer you all this advice. Sometimes people just need you to sit with them, cry, say, it sucks, it's hard, and that'd be it, honestly.
Well, in our book Stories from Webb, you wrote the story about you losing your grandmother and the pain that was. How did you find the bravery to feel comfortable enough not only to share that in writing for a book, but also to be out here today? Because, like I said, obviously this is something that's very personal to you. And so, how did you find the strength to be able to share that story with others?
Well, I mean, when you first came to us and said that you were writing a book and that you wanted us to share our stories, I mean, I will be honest. I was like, oh no, that's not for me. I'm not a writer at all. And then when you reassured us that you would help us if we needed anything, and I talked with my family about it, and they were like, Lauren, you really should because you never know what one sentence could help somebody, and what they're going through, and you may never know. I mean, you may never see that, but
Mhm.
it might help somebody. And so I think that's kind of what pushed me to do it is that if I can help one person, or if I can share my story and they're like, oh, you know what, there's other people going through the same thing, then at least I've helped one person.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Lauren, shifting gears as we close up here, I want to, we talked about earlier, you are such a relationship person, whether it's with adults or with students. And, we are in uncharted times now with this corona and everything going on, and not knowing if we're going to see our kids again this year, if we're going to get the goodbyes and the parties and just the regular instruction at all. How are you coping with all this new and unexpected?
Well, at first I was fine, because I was like, oh, it'll be a couple weeks, and then we'll get back to it. But daily, I just keep thinking, wow, I don't know if we are gonna, go back. And right now it's May 4th, but I just have a fear that we may not get to go back. And I mean, when we said goodbye in spring break, it was like, okay, I love you, get out, you're I love you, bye. And of course, there was the hugs and the goodbyes, but it was goodbye, see you in a week. Like,
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, nobody, teachers don't, always broadcast this, but yeah, I mean, we need a break. So,
Mhm.
yeah, was I excited for spring break? Of
Of
course.
course.
And then I was like, okay, a week more. All right, well, I can get some things done around the house or whatever. And then as the weeks continue to tick away and they shut down longer and longer, I've started to break down when I'm talking to
Mhm.
my family about it, or because that's the only people that I see. Or we have a group of us teachers that when we would text all the time, and
Yeah.
so we just started. I think it was yesterday even that we started texting. Y'all, what if we don't get to go back? And there's
Mhm.
probably some of our students that have had to move
Mhm.
because of a parent being laid off or something. And I know some of our students are stuck in Mexico. I mean, they can't get back. And so just to know that I may have some students that have moved, or I just don't know what their situation is. I mean, that is heartbreaking. And knowing that there's nothing I can do about it, that's even harder. So, if we don't get to go back, that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Well, Lauren, one question that I always love to end these conversations on, and we've talked about a wide variety of stuff today, your own path, things that you've struggled through and dealing with this lot and dealing with not seeing your kids for a while. If there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be? And it doesn't have to be education related, it can be life related. Just what's on your heart that you wish more people knew or understood?
Um, I guess um, I really wish more people knew how difficult it is to be a teacher and a mother at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, and it's so rewarding. I love it, but I'm constantly torn between doing what's best for my students and then doing what's best for my son and my family. And I want to do everything. So I guess that's the one thing is it's really difficult. And I mean, if you see a teacher is also a mother, I mean, hug her because she needs it. And I mean, we always want what's best for our own children, but also our students because they're like our own children. I mean, when teachers say that, they really mean it.
Right. I love that. Well, Lauren, I appreciate you so much, and I thank you for coming on and being able to be vulnerable and share your story, because I really feel like it's really going to resonate and speak to some people who need to hear that message today. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I stepped out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad I did.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's there. I hope today's conversation with Lauren has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.